Well, welcome everybody to the DAC Pavilion. Hope you've all had a nice lunch. I have the pleasure of having Dr. Lucio Lanza and virtually from Japan on the video link, Simon Segars, is going to appear at some point, to get together, have a conversation, moderated by Ed, about where is silicon going? What's going to happen next? Oh, there he is. What time is it, Simon?
It is 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning. Wow. It looks like it. I mean, he's a very good actor. He's really down the hall, and he's just pretending to be.
Yeah, this is the same studio where they did the moon landing.
Oh, okay. So he actually is on the moon doing this from the Apollo 13. Okay. Do you need some more audio from him to adjust that? Are you good? Okay, well, without further ado, I'll pass the stage to Ed to chat with these two old friends and give us some education on what's happening next.
Simon, glad you could join us. Is the cleaning crew in the background or what?
Is that what, sir?
Is there anybody else in the building?
There's a whole army of IT people that have worked very hard to make this work, so I want to thank them and also the DAC production team for making the magic work.
Well, thanks for joining us. When I look at the IoT, going back a couple of years ago, it was pretty much a vision. Even 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, it's now becoming real. And I'm trying to figure out from the standpoint of the industry and also for this audience, what's changed from your standpoint?
Simon?
Well, we can go either way. Would you?
Simon.
Let's start with Simon, and then we'll work to Lucio.
Yeah, I think what's happening at the moment is that there's just a lot of experimentation going on. People are kind of worked out that IoT can be huge benefits. People are starting to experiment with different devices, different ways of sensing the world around them, and starting to get creative about how that data can be used to provide benefits to people, as whether they're consumers or in industry. But I think we're still in a very early stage of this technology, and there's a long way to go and a lot more benefit that can be brought from IoT.
Yeah, I think what has really happened is the IoT as a term is taken over. The things that IoT refers to have been here forever, or for a long time. I mean, we had thermostats and various things that were connected, and we just did not have a way to classify them and just put them in a nice community that IoT as a term does. So, but I think I agree completely. IoT is, in terms of the importance and the impact on society, this is just the beginning. It's absolutely nothing compared to where it's going to be in 5 years, and completely different what's going to be in 20 years.
Are you getting a vision now of what this will look like, though? Take it out several years in a variety of different industries, so medical, industrial, consumer, automotive. What does it look like going forward? We now have an inkling of it, and we could see a little bit better than what it was before.
I like to put it this way. It's the internet, when we started a few years ago, my hair was black. When we started a few years ago, the internet was the internet of computers. And we were dreaming that we connect millions of computers via cable at the time, cable, a pin, but millions of computers. And then suddenly the entire thing became the internet of people. And we connected billions of people. And now we're talking about the internet of things. We're going to connect trillions of things. So the entire community of trillion of things doesn't have rules, doesn't have any behavior that is accepted or not accepted. So there is an incredible set of things that we'll have to change in order for all these things to be connected in an efficient way and in a positive way. I can dream positive ways. I can fear very negative ways of connecting all these things. So that's in my mind what we don't see yet. And it's not going to be 20 years from now. It's going to be a few years from now. We're going to start seeing all these phenomena that we just did not expect on these connections.
Yeah, I think that's a very key point. There are going to be some big unexpected surprises that come from connecting all these devices together. As Lucio mentioned, in the early days of the internet, it was about connecting computers. It was about sharing academic research initially. It was about publishing information maybe about your business. In those early days of the internet, nobody thought about what the big business models were going to be. Nobody anticipated, giant social media companies, giant e-commerce companies that had leveraged these technologies. And I think IoT is very similar. Right now, people are installing cameras everywhere. They're putting sensors on things. They're starting to take the data in actually a very closed way right now. I think as this technology becomes more pervasive, as people start to get access to the data and access to the IoT as our platform, then we'll see a lot of innovation. And big businesses that we can't conceive right now sitting around the table are going to emerge. And for me, that's going to be one of the most fascinating things to watch.
Yeah.
So the 800-pound gorilla in the room is security when it comes to the internet, and instead of one gorilla, now they're all networked together. How do we solve this? What sort of problems are we likely to run into, and what do you see as the outcome of this?
Well, this is a tough question to answer. We don't know what the challenges will be. I think that the only way we'll be able to solve them is by isolating challenges by segments. So challenges are going to be challenges in the medical segment, some challenges in the automotive segment, challenges in various different segments in which IoT are going to be. Because at that point, the experts will be able to understand how the attack might happen and what are the sensitive things to protect. But every single segment is going to have a different way of really assure that using it is not a fundamental negative. But I think it's going to go by segment.
Yeah, I don't think that you can necessarily solve security in the short term. I think it's more a case of managing security in the short term. One of the challenges is that there is so much experimentation going on. It is so easy to connect something to the internet. Every time you do, you risk creating another hole, another entry point for somebody with nefarious intentions to get into the network to start accessing data. And some of the data that we're talking about here is very, very personal. So it's got to be something that is taken really seriously. But I don't think you just solve this by tightening up design. You don't solve it by tightening up the software. It's just something you've got to manage. It's something that I think we've got to take a different approach to as we roll out all of these connected devices.
So ARM has been very active in security for years here. Do you feel like you've made a dent?
Well, what we're trying to do is create some of the building blocks to enable IoT devices to be managed, to help manage the security problem. We have IP that can be installed, designed into a chip to help keep secrets away from non-secure parts of the design. We're building a software platform to help manage the software that would run on the device through its lifetime. So we're trying to create some of the infrastructure so that security can become a managed problem and not a kind of fire and forget and apologize if it all goes horribly wrong problem.
And Lucio, from your standpoint, as you invest in companies, is anybody really willing to pay for this? Is there an upside financially to security?
Is anybody willing to pay? Depends on the risk that they perceive. And normally the risk they perceive depends on how they've been hurt yesterday. That's I think that eventually people will end up understanding they do have to do something. And it's not necessarily because they are attacked, but because somebody that is similar to them is attacked. And we see this very, very soon. I mean, if you look at this, at the damage that is being done today to several corporations, not publicized, by just attack on security from the phone, is something that is obviously a big issue, and corporations understand that. Now, do they publicize that? No, nobody publicizes a risk. They publicize positives, not negatives. So that's But I believe that the consciousness is there and would get there more and more. And the beauty from a technical point of view, this is a problem you don't just solve. You solve, they attack it, you solve it again, they attack it again, you solve it again. So it's going to be something that is going to be requiring a lot of attention and a lot of intelligence and capacity, intellectual capacity for keeping it away from the bad guys.
Some of these designs, though, are looking out at lifespans of 10 to 15 years. Is there enough that we can build into these designs that we can be sure that they can either be updated or secure for that long?
Well, yeah, you've got to build flexibility into the design. You can do that by having over-the-air software updates. You can even do that by building flexibility into the hardware itself. But you do, I think, have to take an approach that, as Lucio said, that the nature of the attack is going to change, and so the nature of the response has to be able to be changed through the device's lifetime. And I think one thing that's really important is that you take the human element out of managing security. I like to ask people when the last time they updated the firmware in their Wi-Fi router in their house was, and I usually get a kind of blank stare or a kind of look of panic. It is too hard to do, and therefore most people don't do it. So, especially as it pertains to anything consumer-related, you've just got to take the human element out. I think that alone would improve security enormously. But fundamentally, you've got to think about the design of a device changing through its lifetime to respond to an ever-changing security threat.
And the interesting thing is that, ARM knows this very well, because I remember when they brought in the first security on the chip, I was amazed that they were doing it, and this was, oh God, 1999, I think, so some time ago. And I think bringing security on the devices is obviously something is going to happen. And to your question on the point of are people really interested in this or not? Are they really going to pay for it or not? I think that at the end we will insert this in the IP, and they will receive it whether they understand how important it is or not. There is another side of the equation that I think is going to be as interesting for security, and is where does the information go from the little device that you had the information with? Where does it go? Now you have the cloud. Now it's a totally different issue, but we can talk about that later.
Well, actually, let's build upon that. What happens when we have trillions of things, not billions of things, and those trillions of things are not just connected to people like they have been today, but they're connected to other things, and they're talking to each other, and they're sharing that information across many different places that you have no idea where it's going. Who wins? Who loses?
I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. I look at this in a strange way. Surprise. I look at the human being, and I look at the human being of today. You see the human. I see you. You see me, and I start thinking, projecting the human being of X years from now, when all the information about the human being happens to be in the cloud. Not the information that I sent to the cloud. No, the information of my heartbeat, the information of my sweat, the information what I did yesterday, the information what I said 2 years ago, the information what my emotions were when I was in that meeting, the information I moved my hands. Everything is up there in the cloud. So all this thing is stuff that is going to be very difficult to protect in any fashion. So you yourself are going to have this cloud that is your cloud, and people are going to be extracting for the cloud the information that they need it when they want it, when they need it, whether they need it or not. So I think this image is the one that scares me, because I can see how we can protect the device. I cannot see how we're going to be able to protect your cloudy self.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because as you say, there is already a ton of data about us. I mean, a lot of the things that you said are already sitting around in the cloud. There is a lot of data being gathered about us constantly all the time. And I think we're on the brink of really having to face up to that because the Internet of Things potentially, just extrapolates that enormously. So, there is regulation coming in, that there is rules starting to be written about, how companies have got to manage data, how companies have got to explain what they're using your data for. I think that's there's risk that slows progress down, of course, but ultimately anyone gathering data has got to take some responsibility for it because there's just so much to lose. There's an enormous upside from the benefits of IoT, but there are some really scary downsides as well. And as a design community, we've all got to take that very, very seriously.
So you mean I could actually disappear if there's a power outage?
Well, you're probably going to be backed up in lots of places, so you're probably good.
So, you look at all these different IoT devices. How do you determine which one is better than another one? What are you looking for in these devices? Is it coming down to an Amazon or Yelp review, or are we into something else?
Well, it depends a lot from field to field. Okay? Right. Let's take a couple of fields that are very, very much in everybody's eyes and thoughts these days. Automotive. Okay? So all the IoT in automotive. Now, everybody tells me how probably tomorrow morning or 3 days from now, I'm going to have my car self-driving. I'll tell you, not my car. My car is not going to be self-driving for a while. Besides the fact it's an Italian car, it doesn't matter. But the point is, for me to get to the point where I trust the car self-driving is going to take a long time. Because the first thing I'm going to think is, well, who else knows how to brake my car? Who else knows how to access the brakes of my car, maybe stopping it from braking? So all these things are there, and I think these are the ones that are going to be stopping people from using it, because when there are 100 people that really had a very good experience with the car and the self-driving, all it takes is one person that gets a bad experience being attacked, and the entire thing gets a bad mark and keeps the bad mark. So I think that's now if you look at on the medical side, well, we can go that in more depth. That is far more challenging and interesting. And the car is nothing compared to the complexity of a human body and human brain. So I think if we look from the human point of view and from the medical point of view, or better, I don't like the medical point of view. I don't like to go to the hospital, but I like not to go to the hospital. So for me, the medical point of view means, what can we do so you don't have to go to you don't have to get sick. So when you look from that point of view, then every single individual is different, and the amount of information needed is unbelievable, but the benefit is immediate.
Simon, has medical taken off from your side? Is it, because we've seen lots of talk about this, it's coming next year, and that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, medical electronics has come a long way. I mean, you can already get pacemakers that will upload data via your smartphone to your doctor. That is helping people, make fewer visits to hospitals and to the doctors already. So, a lot of this technology is starting to happen, but again, I think there's a huge way to go, and huge benefits to, as a consumer, spending less time in the doctor's surgery, but also to the cost of delivering healthcare, which is obviously enormous and a little bit contentious in a lot of countries. But there's enormous benefits that can come from IoT in helping solve those problems, and that's going to become a more acute issue as society ages, and some of these kind of long-term illnesses become the dominant factor driving the cost of healthcare and our experience of healthcare.
What role do you think that machine learning and things like natural language, which we've discussed before, will play in the IoT? How will that affect it?
I was going to get into that. Thank you. When I look at let's look at the medical side of the IoT. On one side, we all know, there is the pharmaceutical industry, there is the healthcare industry, And we're trying to put these IoTs into that environment. 20 years from now, the environment is going to be completely different. Completely different. Just like when I started working in computers, I remember the first companies I was working in, computers not even called computers, but the first company I was working in had an accounting department with 100 people. Well, 99 people on desk this way and one person on desk that way watching them. That was it. It was accounting. Okay? And did I ever think that computer would change that? I didn't. Maybe somebody claims they did. I absolutely didn't. Completely changed, completely different. Now, if I look at the medical side is extremely interesting because what you're really doing, you're getting people to get information on themselves, and that's where the important element is, the acquisition of the information. But then the really exciting stuff comes on the machine learning side, because you're going to have enormous amount of information on yourself, so much you don't even know how to interpret it. You don't even know whether you should act on that or not. You don't want to go to the doctor and ask him whether you should or not, because he doesn't know either. So what you're going to have is enough information that you can, in fact, get your data, and somehow in the cloud you're going to have these machine learning devices, this incredibly smart infrastructure. We're able to say, oh, that's what happens with your sweat. Well, you know, that might be the reason. There is 22% probability that's what it is. You should check that. And by the way, the fact that you have this kind of change in your heartbeat might have driven by these various things, but don't be too concerned. It's going to give you an enormous amount of information that is based on more data than any doctor ever could learn in their lifetime. And that is where the matching happens between the IoT on one side that gets more and more data, and the smartness of machine learning cloud that will help you interpret those data and move you away from the accounting department. Don't need the accounting department, okay? Computer is good enough.
Yeah, I think that machine learning is the whole point of IoT. You know, data on its own is not very interesting. The insight that we can get from the data is where the value is. Yeah. And as Lucio said, there is so much data already being generated. You know, no human can sift through it anyway. You know, back on the medical example, there's more medical research published every day than anyone could ever read. So, you know, the generation is already outstripping the ability to consume it by humans. And that is only going to get worse. For me, machine learning is the point of IoT. A lot of that is going to happen in the cloud, but a lot of that's going to happen in devices as well. You know, I don't see a world where IoT devices are just kind of dumb sensors picking up data, shoveling it up to the cloud, and that's it. I think you're going to see machine learning algorithms running at the edge on the devices, working out what's useful data, what's useless data, gathering more information locally. That improves the kind of security risks about your very private data being broadcast, you know, all over the web. So you'll see machine learning algorithms running at the device, in the network, up in the cloud. But fundamentally, the benefit of gathering all this data is to get the insight from it. And we're going to need a lot of innovation in machine learning algorithms to really make that come to fruition.
So what becomes the most valuable commodity in the future? Is it data? Is that the real value? Because you certainly see that with companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and even IBM moving into that area, trying to control the data.
I think data, I like the way you use the term. Data is a commodity, is there. So absolutely, it's going to be a very valuable commodity. But the most valuable commodity in my mind is the learning, is the machine learning. So that is the real big value. And the machine learning, when I think about machine learning, obviously I'm not smart enough to think the complexity of the algorithm of machine learning. But to me, it's almost like suddenly, as a human being, you're growing up and you get more and more data, and your brain grows enough that you're capable to manage all the data that you have around yourself as a human being of yesterday. Okay? And I can see how you're going to have this unbelievable amount of data, unbelievable. But now the important thing is, how do you find out the data that are important? How do you connect them? How do you learn from the past? How do you predict the future? And that is all something that's going to happen in machine learning. And that's where I think the enormous contribution is going to come from the human beings in making machines really learn and really, at the end, behave and work on the right things.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about, the analogy of data and oil, and data being the oil of the fourth industrial revolution. And it's definitely the raw material that all of this insight is generated from. But I think where the analogy falls over is that actually there's a lot more value that can be derived through combining different sources of data. And one thing that's happening right now in IoT is people are gathering data, they're processing it, they're getting some insight. That's good, but it's a very closed system. I think we'll get enormous benefits when we're able to share data from different sources and gain even more insight into what's going on based on just these different sources of data.
One of the predictions out of companies like Cisco was that in the Internet of Things age, companies would be born and die faster than ever before. In this new world of things, do you predict that will be the same thing, or do the companies that are there just get stronger?
I have to redefine a term company, because the term company, the reason why people think that they're going to not survive is because they don't see the company itself changing. Okay, just think about just IoT. Just IoT, so you have trillions of IoT devices. That means there are probably hundreds of millions of physical features and physical dimension and physical phenomena that you're trying to capture. And you're trying to capture them and make them digital personalities so they can get on the network. Now, do you think that this is going to happen in a company XYZ located in the backyard of my house? No, it's not. The company is probably a company that is made of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of designers somewhere in the world. I don't know where, but they're part of the company. And they're going to be there designing something, and for a while they're part of the company. Why? Because they've made a good design, and the design was approved, and the designer came here. Is the same person going to design tomorrow? I have no idea, but frankly, I don't care. There's another person in Tanzania does the design next time. I don't know what the company is going to be. I don't know how this distributor is going to be. The key to the game is that, and you see this with when you go to dinner and you have these 10 kids there that are just there because they just start working, and they're not talking to each other. They're texting each other. Texting to the person in front. So what was really happening, the physical proximity has no real value. So the company that says everybody comes to work at 8 o'clock and goes out at 5 o'clock, and we have these 6 stories, is going to be the past. The future of the company is going to be everywhere. Who knows? It's going to change with time. So we need to redefine what the company is.
Simon, any last words?
I'm sorry, say that again?
No, any last words? You're down to about your last minute.
All right. Well, just to build on what Lucio was saying, I think for design, that can become a much more distributed thing. I think there's work the EDA community can do to help make that a reality. And I think if we look at how smartphones really grew, it was because of the enormous proliferation of different applications. People got access to this platform. They were able to innovate on top of it in a very inexpensive way. I think we'll see a lot of innovation in IoT through a similar open platform approach. If people can access data in a safe and secure and privacy-friendly way, then there is the potential to unleash a whole new wave of innovation, and new companies will start to form all over the world. We're living in an incredibly virtual world. I mean, here I am sitting in Japan talking to you in Austin, That's just one example of it. There's a whole new generation coming to us as a result of the growth of IoT.
And probably a lot less sleep. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I just want to thank you, the organization, for really helping us doing this. It was really good, and I'm really proud of being part of this community.